In the previous episode of the 2003 Specialized Rockhopper build, we cleaned a disgustingly mucky bike and polished the frame up into a reasonable condition. We also took the time to clean the disgusting components to bring them up to a reasonable condition, ready for the rebuild, which is happening in this video now. Start the build by reinstalling this Manitou axle fork. I'm going to reuse the headset as well because it's actually in pretty good condition. So yeah, just applying loads of grease. The headset went through a degreasing process. So yeah, lots of grease in the headset because it's likely not going to get serviced by the next owner, who's going to be my niece, unless she gives it to me back for service. So yeah, greased up the headset massively and yeah, inserted it into the bike along with some spacers and a brand new Synchros stem. The stem the bike came with was an old school 25.4 clamp mount version, and I want to put a new set of handlebars onto this bike at 31.8, so we need a new stem, and it's nice to have new controls on the bike so it makes it feel newer, I think. So yeah, new stem from Wiggle, cost about $7.99. With the fork and the stem fitted nicely and spinning smoothly, we can now move on to the drivetrain. I wanted to reuse the chain set to come with this bike, but the Shimano Octolink bottom bracket that fitted into was too far gone. The bearings felt kind of rough and slow spinning. And the Octolink bottom brackets are strangely expensive on the websites I looked on, and to keep this in budget, I decided to reuse a bottom bracket and chain set that I had in my parts bin. So, to prevent problems like we had at the start of this build trying to remove this bottom bracket, I am applying loads of grease into this, and then it's time to wind in the bottom bracket. As you can see, it's definitely not a brand new one. This cup is pretty yellow from age, but it works fine. And the bottom bracket we're going to go for is a Shimano square taper jobby, and if this will focus, you'll see it's the ubiquitous UN54 model, which is really standard and brilliant as far as I'm concerned. The crank set we're going to fit to this bike is the classic Cruvative 5D crank set. This is a classic from the early noughties as far as I'm concerned. I actually used to run one of these chain sets a long time ago on a GTI drive. Share my age here, and it never failed me, and I must have run it for a good 3 or 4 years, I reckon. It's a really rock solid, reliable and lightweight chain set if you ever come across them. I've never had it round out on a square taper. Its only problems was it had some quite heavy steel chain rings. Is its only negative, I would say, because it's medium to budget crank. But we're going to sort that out by changing the chain rings out for a race face narrow wide chain ring, which I got in red here. It looks super smart in red. I think it's a 32 tooth, and yeah, it suits the sort of scheme we're going for this build, which I haven't really spoke about. We're going for sort of a red anodized theme for some components, just to jazz up the bike a bit. So yeah, we're starting with the red anodizing with this chain ring. I think I bought this on Wiggle. They were going super cheap. I think it could have been $7.99. It was outrageously cheap. So yeah, really good deal there. They're not that cheap anymore. I checked the other day for another project. But yeah, so yeah, we have the drive side installed, but we have a problem. I like to check the chain line on my narrow wide setups to make the bike run quieter. And at 57mm, would you say? This chain line is far too outboard, so what we need to do is take off the chain ring and switch it to the inside of the chainring tabs on the crank. This doesn't look as good, but the bike will run significantly better in this position. The other thing I had to do was I had to flip the chainring around 180 degrees to the other side, because the chainring is counterboard one side and the chainring bolts are slightly too long. So yeah, flipping it around this way allows you to reuse the standard chainring bolts in this example anyhow. It's one neat detail about these chainrings. Continuing with the anodized red theme, I'm going to be fitting these Spank Spoon handlebars, but one neat thing I wanted to mention is that packaging also doubles up as a mudguard, which is a really neat feature, I thought. So yeah, well done there, Spank, that's a great idea. At 800mm wide, these bars are going to be too wide for my niece, so I need to cut them down, and to do that I'm going to be using a pipe cutter. This is the best way to cut aluminium bars, I think, and super fast, easy, and yeah, trims the edge perfect every time. You just have to deburr them afterwards, that's all. As you can see, there's quite a burr on there you can cut yourself on, so yeah, time to get out deburring tool and a file. You can just use a round file on the inside if you have to, but I've got this deburring tool for machinists and fabricators. It's really quick, easy way to deburr edges. You just kind of put it up against a sharp burr and spin it around multiple times, and yeah, you get them up with a really nice sort of chamfered edge. Unfortunately, I don't have a super cool tool for the outside like that internal deburrer, so it's time to use a file. And obviously I repeated this process on the other side, but I won't bore you with that. It's time to fit them to the bike. At this stage I just want to get the bars onto the bike so I can add the controls. I'm not too worried about their angle, so I'm just going to nip up the bolts for now, and later I will torque them down. The wheels that we're going to use on this build are off of the Cannondale F600 I did about 6 months ago. They have Acera X hubs, and I think they're Alex rims. They're quite nice, they feel very light. I gave them a thorough service and they are very good, I think, overall, and perfect for this bike in a silver build. I fitted some Rapid Rob tyres that are lightly used, and yeah, I think it's a good combination for the purpose of this bike. It's not like an aggressive off-roader, it's almost like a first mountain bike come cruiser almost for the build, what I'm aiming for. So yeah, pretty gentle, relaxed, nothing more than toe pass really. And yeah, same on the rear, same set of wheels, they're Acera X hubs, and I think they're Alex rims anyhow, there's no branding on them. I've also fitted a 7-speed 1132 cassette, I think it's 1132 anyhow, to this bike. It might be 1130. But yeah, real basic, real solid, and nothing to go wrong, and simple and easy. The rear mech we're fitting for this build is a Shimano 105 long cage 10-speed. The XT that come off it I wanted to reuse, but I made a silly mistake, and whilst cleaning it I threw away or poured away the ceramic internal bearing down the drain outside, and yeah, it wasn't recoverable. So one day I'll get that rear mech up and running, but for now this is actually probably an upgrade in reality. A nice newish 105 10-speed. The chain is going to be a Decathlon chain. It's a like 3 to 8 speed chain, and their chains are actually rebranded KMC chains. So if you look at the chain, it doesn't say Decathlon on it, it says KMC. So yeah, their chains are cheaper than a lot of the online places. So if you want a KMC chain, Decathlon is a good place to go. Brake levers, again I got another bargain off of Wiggle. There's a set of Decathlon V-brake levers on there for $5.99, and they perfectly match the frame in a silver and black colourway, so yeah, go for these. Obviously it's too good to leave on the shelf. Yeah, $5.99, absolute bargain, and match the build perfectly. We'll get these installed roughly in the right position. Obviously the angle will change when we put the bike on the floor, so we'll adjust all the angles when the bike's on the floor. For now we just need to nip them up into place so we can then install the shifter. Shifters for this bike, I'm going for some Shimano grip shifts that came off my F600 actually. The STX RC shifter the bike came with, the 9-speed, was jammed. It like wouldn't release very easily, so it's something I need to crack open and give a good service, but I was a bit time pressured to get that sorted in time, so with the failure of the rear mech and that really disgusting cassette, I decided to go for these and do a 7-speed build. These are perfectly good though, and I actually kind of like grip shift for beginner bikes because they're hard to get wrong. Like, just twist it one way or the other way, change it easier or harder. It's perfect for beginner, I think. I'm going to be reusing the Avid V-brakes that came off this bike originally. They're a little bit oxidized, there's like spots coming through the sort of paint or anodizing, but functionally they work really well still. I took it out, I was actually surprised how good the brakes work, they're really sharp. I de-rusted them, there was like the fasteners were a little bit rusty where I took them off, or scaled I should say. So yeah, we're going to reuse these. They're perfectly fine, they just look a bit spotty, which is okay for this budget build. The only slight negative I can think of is the pads, sort of a replaceable pad, and they push the arms out wide to sort of a super high power position, which is fine, but it's not ideal I don't think. So with all our controls fitted, next we can move on to cabling. I always retain the cables for bikes when I take them off, and at least until the bike is rebuilt, as a guide to cut the new cables to. And on this bike particularly, it has some proprietary cable stops as well that we need to reuse, so you could easily throw these out if you didn't do this process of retaining your cables. So yeah, always retain your cables until your bike's built back up. I got a little perplexed by this rear derailleur at this point. For some reason I thought the cable wrapped around the bolt at 90 degrees, but the more I looked at it, it didn't make any sense at all, so it just kind of went straight out in the end. And for all the people who had the thought cross their minds that this combo might not work together, here it is, a 7-speed grip shift working with a 10-speed road rear derailleur. It works really well, I think, and for this build it was kind of a get out of jail free card, literally free, because I had it in stock, so I didn't have to go out and buy a new rear derailleur or some expensive jockey wheels. So yeah, works perfect. Onto the brakes again. I actually replaced the brake noodles on this bike, as the original ones, the inner was kind of poking out and looking all frayed and nasty. So yeah, the brake noodles are super cheap. They're like $2.99 for a pair, so it's worth doing to get the bike and brakes feeling mint. Onto the grips next, and I actually really wanted to reuse these grips that came off the bike because they're quite new and also had a bit of anodized red which matched quite nicely. Only problem is they're not designed for grip shifts, because obviously the collar would be up against the grip shift section, so you'd have a nice metal bit under your palm of your hand, which is no good. So I thought I'd try an idea of trimming off the end of the grip itself, because they felt quite rubbery. I thought I might be able to get this work, if not new grips anyhow. So yeah, I just trimmed it off with a standing blade here, and yeah, took my time, was really careful trimming the ends off. Obviously I had to trim one a bit shorter than the other to account for the grip shift. But yeah, it worked pretty good in the end, so it's a bit of a hack. You can cut some grips down. I wouldn't say it's the case for everyone, but if you're mixing and matching grip shifts and lock-on grips, you can get a real tidy result here. So yeah, what I wanted to do was have that collar on the outside of the bars rather than the inside to make this work with the grip shift. And what we had to do in the end is we have an exposed end there, so I just hammered some bar end plugs into place, so we have a nice and safe grip bar interaction, so there's no core samples going to happen with these bars. Onto pedals, and I'm going to be using these cheap plastic pedals I had in my stockpile. Nothing flash at all. I just took the end caps off and gave the bearings a surface so they spin nice and freely, and it's perfect for my niece's bike because she doesn't really want some really spiky pedals that are going to turn her shins into shin burgers. And you know, if you slip a pedal and you're not used to it, it's not a good look to have blood coming out your shins. A lot of us mountain bikers will be there, but if you're not really into cycling, it's probably something that's going to put you off ever riding a bike again. So basic, simple pedals for a sort of cruiser-ish first mountain bike, I think is a good idea. I found this old school looking anodized red bottle cage on tread, so I picked it up for the build. It's perfect, I think. Greased the bolts up and then yeah, I bolted it down. It's perfect for the build, I reckon. Moving on to the saddle next, and here's a sneak peek at a bike that's coming to the channel. Maybe not next bike, but one afterwards. It's a really cool bike made in UK. This saddle was no good for me. It's a really big fat spring cruiser saddle, but it's probably perfect for a first mountain cruiser bike build I'm building for my niece. So yeah, can you guess what bike this is? It's made in UK as a hint, and I got it for a steal. It's really interesting. It's kind of rough but mint at the same time, so it's pretty original, which is nice. Yeah, let me know in the comments if you can guess what it is. So yeah, let's get this bolted to the bike, and the build is pretty much done apart from some bolt checks, and we're ready to go. So here we have it, the finished bike. I took it to the usual graffiti spot because it's really cool. I really like photographing next to this really cool graffiti piece here in West Oxfordshire. Yeah, so here it is. I only took it for a relatively short test ride, maybe 5k, because it's way too small for me. Although it's 17, it feels a lot smaller. 17-inch bike. I think the build come out perfect for a budget build. I've probably spent less than £100 all in all on this bike. So yeah, the bars are probably the most expensive thing like purchased for it as a single item. I think I spent £20 or £25 on those, but I couldn't resist it because the sort of cherry anodized red and the lettering on this bike really work well together, and it really brings out sort of red in that Specialized. So yeah, for stylistic reasons, that's really good. So yeah, I reckon all around about £100. I reused the wheels on the Marin build. They're really warm brake tracks on them, so I didn't really want to give them away with this bike. I wanted to give some fresh wheels, or probably a bit lighter as well, and I didn't have disc tabs, so yeah, it looked better. Anodized red chainring looks mint, I think, and it's quite low geared still, so it's got like a 1:1 ratio, so it's pretty good for hills. It's either a 1:1 or near 1:1. It might be a 30 on the back rather than a 32, but it's close enough. Really big comfy spodgy saddle, which is no good for sporty riding, but if you're doing a short trip to the shops or mucking around with your friends, that's perfect, I reckon. So yeah, really light, high performance-ish cruiser. I don't know how to put it, but I think it turned out mint in the end. So yeah, I'm really happy, and she was absolutely stoked on this bike. I think she was super chuffed with it. Especially like as a birthday present from me. Usually I just get a Lego or something boring like that. So yeah, this was a good fun build. I had fun building it. Here's just some photos I took with it. I wish it was bigger so I could take it for a ride and get a feel for it. The forks felt surprisingly good. I didn't service them. They felt good, and I was a little worried about taking them apart. They feel really nice actually. Yeah, it's come together really well, I thought. So yeah, thanks for watching this video. If you've been following along with this build, I should have some things coming soon. I think I left you a clue, but the next bike should be a Cannondale because there's already part in my garage and I'm already filming it. So next bike will be a Cannondale. Yeah, awesome Cannondale. A one from Seinfeld. If you know which one that is, you're a bigger Seinfeld fan than me. Yeah, so yeah, this is the Specialized. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.